So in the last video, I went over making the inventory, some basic items, animations, yelled bean twice, and talked about the main idea for my online multiplayer zombie roguelike. And in this video, I finished a bunch of core mechanics, so stay tuned. The first thing I tried doing was adding some new animations, but I wasn't really digging the new animations, so I went back to the old ones for now. So instead, I imported my weather asset, Cozy Weather 3, and my foliage asset, the vegetation engine, and with these two assets working in tandem, they together take care of the time of day, what day it is, wind, grass deforming for players and cars, weather sounds, and weather such as rain, hail, sunny clouds, and electric storms. So doors are kind of important. I was able to add doors using my interaction interface. It allows me to add any interaction and still only ever call one function. And then I played some DayZ with my most favoritist uncle ever. Who wrote this script? Anyways, he was mad because the doors in DayZ only open one way, which means you can get stuck if they end up opening weird. So I added support for doors to open the way you're facing. Then I had to add support for the interaction text to change if something happened, because currently it only says open door. Which obviously worked first try. Who do you think I am? Some kind of punk that doesn't know how to code stuff properly? Next I added support for double doors, which worked perfectly on the first try, obviously. Cue the montage. During that time of headbanging, I also wanted you to be able to close doors by looking at the empty space where they're closed. So I added that too. Now that doors are functional, I can finally focus on audio. First I added sounds that play when opening and closing doors, and then I kinda went on a productive tangent where I made a system where all sounds that are played inside of buildings have reverb, and if you were in the building yourself, all sounds you would hear would also have reverb. Now with that tangent over, I decided to change items so that they only glowed when you looked at them. I also stopped the first person camera from shaking violently. Now the old animations were finally getting to me because they were really bad. So I used the ones from one of Unity's templates. But once they were in, I discovered that I also added bee hopping, which is pretty fun, but what? You were wondering what bee hopping is? Well, it's where you are hopping, but faster. So yeah. Then I added sounds to walking and running. I also made all animations transition smoothly. Then I needed a break from coding, so I decided to make a bullet particle that will play sounds when it hits the ground whenever you shoot using Unity's particle system, a great system for making particles. Now that I was back on track, I started working on adding a stamina bar, because a zombie game wouldn't be fun if they couldn't get you. I went through a lot of iterations on the bar's looks, but I'll talk about that later. I then made it so that way you only had 10 seconds of sprint, and if you jumped, it would reduce it by a big amount. Then I tried to make it so that way when you were crouching in third person, it would lower the camera, but that took a few tries to get that working. Second try, baby, let's go! I ended up not liking the look of the old circles, so I ended up tweaking them to fit more in line with the rest of the theme. Adding stamina made me a little thirsty, and I needed some water, so I hit up Mixamo one more time and grabbed the drinking animation. And ended up spending an hour looking for animations. Thanks Mixamo, very cool. I was now ready to add drinking to my game. I know, very original. And since I invented drinking, I noticed the animation was choppy, so I fixed it. Then I made him very thirsty, and made it worse when he moved around. I then gave him the ability to fight his thirst by drinking. I also added a throwing animation so we can take out his anger on the ground. Then I needed to add sounds. Whatever you do, don't look up drinking sounds. Worst mistake of my life. Since there's no feedback on items yet, I also made water bottles play an empty sound when you try to drink from an empty bottle. I then added a clock that tells time, who would have guessed, and I also added a day counter. Next was compass time. Oh boy, I love making compasses. First thing to do was loop the compass and then make sure the south pole and both sides lined up when it loops, which it now does nicely. Then I added a marker and made it follow the tree for testing, but now the marker doesn't loop. So I tried a few methods that didn't work until I used the other half of my brain and made a copy that would follow on the other side and loop inversely. Then all I had to do was make them both the same color, and now it loops without you being able to notice that it's even two different markers. The next thing I added was healing items that are different tiers that heal you more, but you can carry less in a stack. That is important because if you want to lose less health from dropping all your ketchup, you'll need to patch yourself up. I also made it spawn a decal on the ground that's definitely just you spilling your ketchup when you take damage, that also stains any grass nearby. I then made that spilled ketchup disappear over time, which as usual worked first try. Then to finish off the dark orange juice mechanic, I made band-aids remove the ketchup status effect. I then totally only added radiation once the red milk mechanic was completely done. I would never work on stuff in parallel. I made it so that if you're next to a radiation source for too long, you will take slow ketchup spilling damage, and it will stop once all radiation is gone. I then finally cleaned up my player script so everything was organized and easy to change in the future. It was really hard when first making the status bar because of how bad it looked at the beginning, but as time went on I started to see the end goal, and in the end I think they came out looking good. When you get hit by a zombie, you will gain a small amount of infection. It will then spread and fill up a bar. When a bar is full, it will remove 25 max HP and stop going. If you get hit again while the bar is full, it will start spreading until the next bar is full. And when fully infected, you will only have 25% max HP. But if you have pills, you can then at any time use them to remove 30% infection until it's all gone. Your max HP will increase as your infection decreases. I then made the baked bean meter show how many times you'll have to drop your beans if you don't use band-aids. I finally also added a table where you can spawn all of the working items so you don't run out while playtesting. First on the list for customization is to add skin tone and gender buttons, which now works. Then I needed to add the rest of the characters and the options to change what color clothes you want. Then I went on to add support for hat and hair options. I also added the option for any hat or hair to also support 16 colors. I then did the same for the face options, and also made it zoom in on your face when choosing a face or hat. Then for the backpack, I wanted the character to turn around when you're choosing a backpack, which again, worked first try. I then noticed that it's really hard to see when the buttons are really small and some of the texts are long, so I made all buttons bigger and made it scroll like a list. And then to finish it off, I made it to where the text no longer gets hidden behind the buttons when scrolling. And that's all I was able to do this week. Thanks for watching the video. I hope this gets you as excited to see this project get finished as I am. If you want to play for yourself and mess around with what I have made, again the link is on my itch page, where you can download it. The link is also in the description and is completely free. And don't forget to smash like if you like, smash dislike if you don't, and I'll see you next time.